Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton,
I'm Bob Scarborough.
and we are
The fair.
the FAIRtax Guys.
I
Yes.
think I'm going to put this on the back of my drone and fly it around town. Just
Oh, that'll work. This flying around inside the Coliseum with Wake Forest just playing
as,
basketball.
they'll be coming after me for that one for sure.
Oh, I know. You
Oh,
probably can't get away with doing that. But anyhow, well, it's getting kind of cold up there in Winston-Salem now, I understand.
yeah, up on the ridge where we stay, it's we're doing the recording here on the 29th of November, and it is the 29th of November. Tomorrow morning, at about 5 or 6 a.m., we're at the house. We're looking at about 26, 25, 26 degrees. Yeah.
And now you know why I moved to Florida.
Yeah.
But
Many
one
moons ago.
One thing, real quick, I want to touch on that us broadcasters don't usually like to talk too much about technical issues that we have. But a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't watching a couple of weeks ago. I usually do watch the stream on Tuesday night, but we had company that night. I wasn't able to do it, and I didn't find out until a couple of days after the fact that our streaming distributor, for some reason, played like the first minute and a half of the program, and then it just quit. So I have no idea what happened that night. I apologize for those of you who got shorted that night. And so I rescheduled that same episode, the rest of the story part two. I rescheduled that for what is, as we are recording this upcoming Tuesday. So I don't know yet whether that actually streamed successfully or not. Hopefully it did, but if it didn't, then I'm not going to try a third time. We'll just put it up on the Rumble archive and folks can go watch it there. But
Right.
hopefully we will not have any more streaming issues. We've used that service for years without very, very few problems.
Right.
So again, I apologize for the really short one a couple of weeks ago. I didn't realize that was going on until a couple of days later. Hopefully the reschedule worked okay. We don't know as we're recording this if it did or not. But that's what's going on there, and let's just kind of leave that there so we don't get too deep into the technical weeds of what's going on with our FAIRtax Power Radio show. And we can get right into
Yes. Dun, dun, dun.
the Congress critters are back at it again at full steam, which is, I guess they're trying to get a bunch of stuff done before they all leave town for the holiday. And but anyhow, they have got quite a number of things here in the Congress.gov segment for this week's FAIRtax Power Radio. And again, what we do, if you're new to the program, we put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes in the search function there at the top of the Congress.gov page. And when you hit go on that search, assuming that you've got on the left side, you're selecting just legislation in the current Congress. That search, as of the day we're recording this, is bringing back 2,109 hits. Imagine that, 2,109 hits on that search. Now, not all of them are proposals to change the tax code, but most of them, the huge, great majority of them are. So I'd say it's close to, if not over, 2,000 proposals to change the tax code in this current Congress. Starting this week with HR 10222. They've gotten the HR bill numbers up into 5 digits now. This is actually from Darrell Issa out in California to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 with respect to the application of the excise tax on tobacco to pipe and water pipe tobacco. So apparently there's some kind of excise tax on tobacco, and Congressman Issa wants to make sure that that applies also to pipe and water pipe tobacco, which I must admit I am totally unfamiliar with. I've never messed with either one. But there we go. They're messing with the tax. One co-sponsor on that bill.
Just one besides ISA.
ISA is the main sponsor, and there's one co-sponsor. I didn't click through to see who it is, but that's they're messing with the tax code to just said to amend it. Didn't really said what he wanted to do with it. Just amend it with respect to the application of the excise tax on tobacco to pipe and water pipe tobacco. Again, that's what our wonderful, glorious tax code is up to. Now, this is a good one. This is a HR 10195. 10195. This actually comes from Representative Bob Good from Virginia, who I understand was not successful in his reelection, but he is still up there for the time being. This is the No Discrimination in Housing Act, HR 10195. This one actually does have some text in it. When you click through into that, and it says this bill is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to disallow the low-income housing tax credit to taxpayers that have diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Now, this one is probably going to go in the Hall of Shame because we have been on record here at FAIRtax Power Radio of saying it is it is just flat out wrong for Congress critters to be using the tax code to push a political agenda. Now, we notice there's more agenda pushing on the left than there is on the right, but this is one on the right that the Representative Good doesn't want to allow people who have diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives to get the low-income housing tax credit. I got a good idea. Why don't we just pull this whole mess out by the roots and replace it with a fair tax? Then we don't have to worry about this kind of stuff.
And there's a considerable amount of conversation about government efficiencies right now, some of which we'll talk about either later in this program or the next one. But here we go. The tax code is not necessarily the place for all this business to be taking place in.
Mm-hmm. It isn't. So we'll actually, Bob Good was a FAIRtax co-sponsor. I don't want to say too much bad about him, but that's just another example of what goes on with the tax code. Political agenda pushing. Again, both sides do it, and it all goes away when we replace the income tax with a fair tax. Here's another one. This is over on the Senate side. This is from Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, S 5370, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to improve and enhance the work opportunity tax credit, to encourage longer service employment, and to modernize the credit to make it more effective as a hiring incentive for targeted workers and your favorite phrase, for other purposes. Again, how many times have we highlighted on this show in this segment, tax credit, tax credit, tax credit, tax credit, tax deduction? It's just insane that there's so much of that stuff in the tax code. And again, that goes away when we replace the income tax with the fair tax.
Looking forward to it. I mean, when you think about it, this whole process has got to wear out the staff of these representatiams who are pitching all of these crazy ideas, and some of them legitimate, but a lot of them are, I mean, it just how much time could be redirected, how much personal effort could be redirected. And that's why I said what I said a minute ago about the great discussion is taking place, resulting in the general inefficiencies of our government and how we can change that. Fair tax comes in and sweeps a considerable amount of that inefficiency out of the way if you take a look at what the fair tax can do.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, next week here on FAIRtax Power Radio, we're going to get into an article that's actually got some age on it. It's written by the GAO, the Government Accounting Office, in 1993, and it has example after example after example after example of waste and inefficiency in the IRS. So that's what we can look forward to next week on FAIRtax Power Radio. And I just realized I forgot something. Hang on a minute, my throat is
well, you were kind of coughing and sputtering.
Yes, I've got to get my
there we go.
Cheerwine. Somebody's asked me one time, is that some kind of paid product placement? Does Cheerwine pay you to drink their stuff on your podcast? No, they don't. I just drink it anyway because it's good.
They should. Well, when he comes up to North Carolina to record a show here and there, we go to Mr. Barbecue, which is one of the restaurants here in town that has Cheerwine at the fountain.
Yeah, fountain drink there. Okay, let's do one more here. Time's getting away from us here. This is our last little goodie for Congress.gov this week. This is from Senator Michael Bennett of Colorado, S 5369, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to see if you can figure this one out. To establish, oh, would you believe it? Another tax credit, a technology neutral tax credit for increased investment in next generation carbon dioxide removal technologies. That's almost another Hall of Shamer as well.
Yeah, we'll have to have a two-part Hall of Shame episode this year.
Actually, there's really not as much in there this year as there has been in previous years. So, but hopefully, I think we've got enough to get through an entire program. And again, promotional note: on the very last Tuesday of the calendar year, we always go through all of the what we consider the tax proposal Hall of Shame. Not necessarily shameful purposes on some of these things, but it's just shameful and crazy that such a thing has to exist in the tax code. Although there are some of the things that are shameful, we'll call them out for what they are. But that will be on the last Tuesday of December. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually the last day, the 31st. I'll have to get my calendar and check that out. But that's our Congress.gov segment for this week. We've got some more goodies that we will get into next week here on the program. But you sent me an article a few days ago from the Epoch Times saying that inefficiency at the IRS is costing taxpayers literally billions with a B, billions of dollars is being lost because the IRS is so inefficient and just such a, I'd say, modeled after the Keystone Cops, who you'd think that on occasions. But if you would just kind of delve into that article to start with.
It was written by Naveen Athrapouli on the 20th of November at the epochtimes.com. It was updated just a few days after. But according to this article, the new non-government Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, has turned its attention toward simplifying the U.S. tax code.
Oh, is that ever more good news? Because they can have a field day looking for inefficiency and waste. I mean, the IRS's budget was a couple of years ago like around $12 billion. I think they've upped that to close to $80 billion now. And I bet you they could find all kinds of goodies at the IRS to get into. Go ahead.
I think private, a private initiative is what has been needed. And we were talking before we started the program up today, Bob and I confer a little bit. And I said, the thing is I can't imagine that this would end up being a political, I mean, from a standpoint of the citizenry. Obviously, the people in Washington like the inefficiency. They like to spend 5 days a week at home and collect a paycheck, and so you have a considerable amount of waste that takes place. So anyway, the Department of Government Efficiency is not like part of the government. It is a private initiative
it's going to be a presidential advisory commission more than anything else. They're not going to have any real power to actually cut anything, but they can shine the spotlight of truth on what's going on. I imagine the legacy media is probably going to tamp as much of that down as they can, but there's going to be lots of social media, lots of alternative media publishing what this commission has found. And I think the American people, when they really start paying attention to how much of their money the government is wasting, they are just going to be astounded beyond description.
Social media, especially on X, formerly Twitter, is just flowing with stories and commentary about what this extra governmental entity, DOGE, as it's said, is going to do. Within the tax code, we know that it's a kind of a thorn in everybody's side. An August 6th report, according to this article, by the nonprofit Tax Foundation, found that complicated tax rules cost Americans $546 billion, which is almost 2% of the country's gross domestic product. The National Taxpayers Union Foundation, according to this article, another nonprofit, noted in a report that the quote, one factor behind the complexity and confusion associated with tax compliance is the sheer size of the tax code.
Yeah, we've hit on that time and time again. And of course, the next statement here, this little article is pretty telling. The Treasury Department's interpretation of the code. I mean, the code is so vague, so inefficient. The Congress critters write the code, then somebody else writes the regulations to implement it. And then, of course, a lot of that is subject to interpretation because that is written in a rather vague manner. And sometimes the Treasury Department's interpretation of the code, 22 volumes, more than 17,000 pages. I guarantee you nobody understands it all.
No, and here on FairTax Power Radio every week we kind of beat up on the and rightfully so on the Internal Revenue Service due to the inefficiencies. We always joke and say they're still on DOS 1.0 and so on. But now here we have two high-profile individuals. One was a presidential candidate. The other one is one of the richest men in the country that are bringing a bigger light than any of us can shine on the inefficiencies across government, across the bureaucracy. And we know that there is great opportunity for the fair tax to be openly discussed. There's a fellow, I'm going to give a shout out to him. We talked about him a minute ago, who is on X about every day, named Robert DePisa. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Robert, but thank you for replying and posting. And of course, Randy Fish, who's on there every day with posts for FairTax Official, which is the official FairTax handle on X. But there are people that are out there, and I'll use this as an opportunity to encourage our viewers and listeners, if you're on Twitter, X, that you should go ahead and follow FairTax Official, and then begin to look into some of the commentary that is taking place specifically, but not necessarily within Elon Musk's commentary about what he's doing with the Department of Government Efficiency, and Vivek Ramaswamy the same, to see what other comments are going into their flow of information, and make sure that you put in your reply, FairTax Official and also fairtax.org, et cetera, and let people know that this is an option. I'm seeing a considerable amount of our posts going out there, but I'm also seeing the always present flat tax commentary that's taking place. And we all know the only thing that is common in between the fair tax and the flat tax is that it's four letters and starts with F, both of them.
I tell you, and I've seen the posts that say, how do you propose to get rid of taxes and still, run the government? They don't really, there are a lot of people, either they're willfully ignorant or they're just being, maliciously lying about the fair tax. They don't reveal the fact the fair tax is designed, it was designed from the ground up by economists to replace the income tax, to generate the same amount of revenue for the government that the income tax does. Now, the fact that we spend a lot more than we take in is an entirely separate conversation. But the fair tax is not getting rid of taxes, period. It's replacing the income tax with a retail sales tax with a prebate feature by which the tax on your basic necessities does not come out of your pocket. You pay it at the cash register, but it's reimbursed to you in this prebate, so you don't take a dime out of your pocket to pay the fair tax until you have met your family's basic necessities, the exact antithesis of what the income tax does. The payroll taxes especially tax every dollar a worker makes, and the government takes its chunk out of your paycheck before you even get it. Again, all that goes away with the fair tax.
And now I'll reiterate the opportunity is now as this discussion under the Department of Government Efficiency continues to roll in whatever form it takes when the administration Trump administration goes into office on January 20th. There's a lot that's taking place. Those huge spotlights are shining on all areas of the government in terms of the bureaucracy and how things could be managed better. For instance, when the announcement of shining a light on the Internal Revenue Service came about, stock preparation companies like H&R Block, Intuit, et cetera, their stocks went down. The IRS is now offering, of course, as we know, Direct File is free online tax filing option launched back in March in a limited capacity. There are only eligible taxpayers from 12 states able to use that service. But here we go. We've got a couple of guys that are high profile, and with everybody looking at the $36 trillion in debt that we're facing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked with Representative Linder about this on numerous occasions on this very program, about how folks are going to see the fair tax, a tax on consumption as opposed to a tax on income, as the way to get away from the precipice. And then if you combine that retooling with what is taking place with the non-governmental review by the Ramaswamy and Musk, will give us a really clear look for maybe the first time in a long time where we're just throwing money down a hole that is never going to get filled up in terms of the government's operation.
Well, I tell you, there are plenty of it, and I read an article somewhere that this would kind of indicate the size and the scope of what these guys have to deal with. Vivek and Elon, they are saying that commission's final report is not expected until July of 2026, which would be the 250th anniversary, of the founding of America. It's going to take them, a year and a half at least to go through all of the stuff that they can find. And they're thinking that if they make that recommendation on July 4th of 2026 is when the final report will be. Obviously, there's going to be stuff coming out of it between its implementation and its final report stage. But it's going to take that long to find as much waste as there is out there. And of course, by July 2026, that's just a couple of months away from the midterms, and we'll see what kind of effect that would have if there's this gigantic searchlight of truth, focused on billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars that is wasted. And again, if they could cut out the waste, then they could just kind of collect this. They would balance the budget without having to increase taxes at all. In that case, what we take in would be sufficient to fund our legitimate needs. And so hopefully that's going to go well. And I say this has a much broader scope than just the tax code. We are certainly hoping that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be taking quite a big swing with a rather large sledgehammer at a lot of the tax code and the inefficiencies therein. And it's too bad. It's just there's going to be, collateral damage, if you will, in the form of people whose jobs go away because they weren't really necessary in the first place. But it's our money that the government is wasting by the billions of dollars. And so, again, if you can talk with your congressional representative, again, the focus of this program, of course, is on the tax code and on the fair tax. If we could make sure that your congressional representative is going to pay attention to what Elon and Vivek come up with, especially in the realm of the tax code, that it's going to take public pressure to do it, because there are a lot of the recommendations. In fact, I read an article one time that said that Elon Musk, they're taking resumes now through X, and they said they're looking for people in the 99th percentile of IQ. I mean, the top 1% of high IQ people that are willing to work for 80 hours a week, make lots of enemies, and the compensation is zero. These are not paid positions that they're doing. But anyway, that's what's going on, and we at the Fair Tax Movement is we are going to support this 100% when they go to finding waste and inefficiency in the IRS, and I think they will come to the same conclusion that Representative Linder did when he talked to us. The code we've got now is just unsustainable. It's going to collapse under its own weight eventually, and when that happens, the only way the government can keep running would be with something like the fair tax.
Yeah, exactly. And the challenges that the opportunities, I'll say, I won't use the word challenge. The opportunity that we have right now as fair tax supporters, volunteers that are there, folks that are listening on the program, if you're on X or any other social media, begin those conversations, and especially in your community, friends that you have, conversations you can have with coworkers, et cetera. Hey, did you hear about all this that's going on with government efficiency and all? Well, this is really great. Oh, and by the way, the tax code is part of that. So you need to begin those conversations and go like Randy does, or Randy Fisher, who is our social media guy, and other things within the organization, and also a few other people that are out there that support the fair tax, that are out there scanning through social media, finding people that are having a conversation related to taxation, federal level especially, and reply and make sure that all of those associated people are tagged, if you will, in those replies that you have. So you put in fairtax.org, has all the answers, and the big solution, tax on consumption as opposed to income, HR 25, and then tag the folks that are tag President-elect Trump, tag Elon Musk, tag Vivek Ramaswamy, so that their feed exposure sees fair tax, fair tax, fair tax. And the other thing is our representatives call them and let them know. And they know that this is going to be a very sensitive time for them because of the change in leadership at the executive branch. And essentially, they're going to be the ones that hear from us. If they get enough calls about the fair tax, that you darn tootin', they're going to absolutely be aware of it and take a look at it.
Indeed. Well, we're going to have to leave this right here for this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. We are out of time again. We will continue with this theme next week and looking specifically at this GAO report. I mean, it's came out in 1993. It's got a good bit of age on it. But what that really tells me, all of the things that they identified way back then, most of, not all of them, have not been fixed yet. So we'll go through that report next week on Fair Tax Power Radio. Hope you can be with us. Hope our technical problems are all solved by then. But until we meet again, we've got to see you later. I'm Bob Paxton.
Bob Scarborough.
The FAIRtax Guys reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax. Once you understand it,
we'll demand it.
Roll Tide.
So tell me how it works.
You know, it's probably changed since the last time I saw it, but the short answer would be, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Okay. Imagine bringing home everything you make. You don't get taxed for saving or accumulating wealth, and your boss doesn't get taxed more even if he pays you more.
Wow, see, that's amazing.
So the end result of all that is the cost of producing products and running a business goes down, so things cost less. And on top of all that, imagine every criminal, non-citizen, and under-the-table worker also paying taxes.
That's amazing.
That's the fair tax. We tax what you consume as you consume it, and that's it.